Theme for our sermon this morning: make friends of the wind and the rain. Make friends of the wind and the rain. In a perfect and ideal world, there would be a readily available solution to every problem, an instant answer to every question, an openly accessible cure for any sickness. Unfortunately for us, we are in a rather imperfect and not so ideal world. We live amongst problems that we struggle to find solutions for. We witness loved ones suffer to death through illness. And we are faced with many questions which we cannot answer. There's no doubt in my mind that the internet is creating some of the most serious problems that the media is struggling to respond to. Information today can be shared and publicized in the blink of an eye, without much care for authenticity and accuracy. What was normally reported only via official media outlets is now anyone's business. The media itself is struggling to keep up with anonymous bloggers. What was normally private and personal is now a public affair. The freedom to express one's views has become the freedom to shame and defame others. This is how the internet has impacted and changed our world. Today, the Apostle James comes to us with a valuable lesson on how to face such problems. Make friends of the wind and the rain. James in our reading is referring to the challenges encountered by the early church in the first century. He is talking about the trials and tribulations which early Christians were exposed to. In his view, these challenges are opportunities to develop capacities in us for wisdom, for joy, for inner strength that would not and probably can never be developed in any other way. So instead of resenting such problems as intruders, we need to welcome them as friends. Accept that they can make us better servants. The message of the gospel for us today is this: be steadfast in what God has called you to do. But understand that we are living in a rather imperfect world. In today's day and age, the internet is becoming more and more powerful, bringing to life tons of challenges that we've never seen before. James has taught us to make friends with those challenges. Allow them to bring to light what we value deep inside of us, as it could be a solution that the world is struggling to realize. May the Lord of wisdom guide you through your deliberations and activities of today. And to him be all honor and praise. Amen.
I would like to begin by a quote from Nelson Mandela. I quote, "A critical, independent, and investigative press is the lifeblood of any democracy. The press must be free from state interference. It must have the economic strength to stand up to the blandishment of government officials. It must have sufficient independence from vested interests to be bold and inquiring without fear or favor. It must enjoy the protection of the Constitution so that it can protect our rights as citizens." I unquote. This statement, given in February 1994, is as true for Samoa or any other country in the Pacific or in this world as it is for the birthplace of Madiba, Nelson Mandela. The Associate Minister reminded us of 4 objectives that guide the celebration of this day, why we gather on this day every year. He also referred to the SDGs, and taking off from him, I would like to point out that the SDG 16, which is on access to information, is of particular importance for press freedom. And therefore, this day reminds us that it is an occasion for informing citizens as well, ordinary residents of the country as well, of the violations of press freedom, a reminder that in countries around the world, publications, newspapers are being censored, fined, suspended, closed down, and journalists, editors, publishers are being harassed, attacked, detained, and in some countries even murdered. We do not want these things to be happening in Samoa, and we would like Samoa to remain what it is called an island of paradise, or a paradise for press freedom. Before him, the Reverend mentioned some issues which we as ordinary citizens or ordinary residents often come across. He expressed his fear of social media, of private becoming public. The Associate Minister also took note of these 2 fears. But what I also noted when Reverend spoke is that he hoped that this context, this environment, this development will help us bring more accountability in our conduct. Of course, his reference was to the ministers, to the servants of the church, but we can apply it to ourselves in our own individual capacities, no matter what we are doing. And therefore, it is also important that media also shares these fears and this hope. Because as much as it is important for the governments to respect the need to protect a free press in their country, it is also a day to reflect on media ethics by media professionals themselves. And I raise this because while media is a rather a calm affair in Samoa, there are at times issues that capture the headlines of the newspapers. For example, reporting on the rapes, sexual crimes. Of course, there are different debates, issues around this, and I'm taking this as an example because it's really an example where fake news flourishes. It's really an example where social media plays a big role, and it's an example where human rights are concerned, rights of women, children, young boys are concerned. So what balance should media bring in? Should this kind of issue be reported or not reported? Indeed, it should be reported. There should be freedom for every child, every woman, every person to come forward and say their bodily integrity has been harmed or affected. But at the same time, media also has a responsibility to ensure while reporting such stories, they remember what is the objective of such reporting. Protection of the child, protection of women's rights, of young women's right to have their body protected, their sense of security maintained, to respect child rights, to respect women's rights, and that there is a due process to take place. So such reporting should not have elements of any titillation, sensationalism. It must be within the bounds of the ethics while bringing out the facts, but not to be curtailed. I would also like to conclude by saying that freedom is as much a right as much it is a responsibility. It is also a duty to exercise freedom with a sense of accountability on the part of the government, on the part of the media, and on the part of the citizens as well, because we as citizens often drive the news, create a demand for a certain kind of news. We also have a responsibility to be media literate, to be aware that the press is that intermediary voice in a democracy that brings our views to the government and brings the facts behind the government's working to our knowledge, so we can hold our governments accountable. So thank you very much, and I wish very good deliberations today, and I hope everybody will go back with a sense of having spent their time discussing a topic which has an implication or a value in their lives.